Today, the latest episode of Helluva being Season 2, Episode 11 Mastermind released. This episode was quite different from the rest and pushed the plot forward in a really significant way, which I'm excited to discuss. Like always, I'll give a quick synopsis of what happens in the episode and then move on to discuss my thoughts on it. So the episode starts with Stella informing her brother that Blitz and Stolas have been using the Grimoire illegally. As a result, Andre calls the equivalent of Hell's police to hunt IMP down. They get caught and are hauled off to a large courtroom which features all of the important leaders of Hell except for Lucifer, who is missing, presumably in the Pride Ring during the events of Hazbin Hotel. Blitz and the other characters are about to get executed, but Stolas comes in to save them and sings the only song of the episode, fittingly called Mastermind. Blitz is let go, but Stolas is punished and loses all his royal wealth and powers for 100 years. As a result, Blitz takes Stolas in to stay at his house with him and Luna, while Blitz is heralded as a hero to the rest of Impkind. The episode ends with Stolas asleep on Blitz's sofa and Blitz kisses him on the cheek. So with the synopsis covered, let's get into my thoughts. Right off the bat, I think this is my favourite episode of Season 2 so far. The writing was extremely strong and it touched all of the narrative plot points it should have. Although this episode is really loaded in terms of story and character development, I think it mixes them well with actual heart-wrenching scenes that keep you on the edge of your seat. The elephant in the room being Blitz and Stolas' execution. Of course, most viewers will watch this sequence and know that neither character will die since they're the main characters and we're 2 seasons into a 4-season story. However, the way it unfolded was fantastic. Stolas' entrance, the wonderful Mastermind song, and the response from Satan was beautiful. It's definitely one of the standout moments of the season so far, and it reminds me a lot of those story-focused scenes that made the show so memorable during Season 1. I've seen this sentiment around a lot from people that the Stolas plot points are starting to wear thin, and I think this episode has reignited my excitement for their relationship. Throughout Season 2, myself and many others felt like the story was just flowing along and there wasn't any real resolution to anything that was happening until Apology Tour. Mastermind was the final climax to everything that's been building up. Both Blitz and Stolas finally came to terms with their feelings for one another and it was great to see. It was also smart for Stolas to lose his powers as well, since he's now put down to the same level as Blitz. Throughout the show, a central plot point has been that Stolas is royalty while Blitz is a lowly imp, so the relationship can work. That's no longer an issue. They're equals now and can finally start to rekindle their romance. I'm genuinely really excited to see what future episodes entail for the pair. I know a lot of people harp on about how they miss the old mission-focused episodes, but it's these plot-focused ones that I think sets Helluva apart from every other indie show. The writing was superb, easily my favourite of Season 2 so far. Linked in with the writing was the pacing. The episode was paced extremely well, especially since it was only 22 minutes. It didn't drag, every scene made sense and all the characters interacted in a meaningful way. There was no A or B plot to confuse things like we've had in the past. It was a great change of pace to have things be very focused and to the point with no side stories to take us away from the main story. In terms of lore and world building, Mastermind brought a lot of new info to the table. We finally got the reveal of the rest of the sins, which is something fans have been waiting for ever since Vivzy revealed the fact that there are 7 sins. I'm extremely surprised that Kesha was able to voice Beelzebub. I was convinced that she would be recast like Stryker was, but that wasn't the case, which is awesome. Following on from that, we got so much character depth and development. Andreas' performance was great. In previous episodes, he sort of took a backseat, only really serving as an advisor to his sister. However, in Mastermind, he finally took centre stage, and I think he's one of the series' most compelling villains. His voice was great, his lines are witty and thought-provoking, and his powers are unique. Luna and Blitz's relationship was improved upon as well. We finally got confirmation that Luna does in fact love her dad and cares about him. It was heartwarming to see, and I hope we see that compassionate side of her more in the future. I've mentioned this in previous episodes, but Stella is also one of my favourite characters. She's someone who gets a lot of flack in the fandom for being a one-note villain, and this episode conveys that that isn't the case. In particular, the scene where Octavia sees what's happening to her father and rushes to Stella to hug her, with Stella doing an evil grin. It reiterates that Stella is doing the tried and true tactic a lot of divorced parents do, where they try to pit the children against the other parent. Although Stella doesn't have as many thought out plans like her brother Andre, she clearly has motivations and will do whatever she can to achieve them. She wants Stolas out of the picture and she knows how much Octavia means to him, so she's trying to get Octavia to turn on her father. In my opinion, I think this is really smart world building. They set up the plot points way back in Season 1 and we're finally seeing the results start to appear. The new characters were excellent as well. Although Visago's role wasn't too important, it was great to see him introduced and I reckon he'll be important in future episodes. Satan was amazing and I loved the little demon beside him trying to get him to work on his temper. He succeeded as being an imposing leader and his voice fit really well. The other returning characters had some funny gags too, especially Mammon. He's one of my favourite sins. It's always great when he's on screen. With most of the things I liked covered, there's a couple of criticisms. First off, I think they could have explained the role of the sins a bit better. Like I mentioned earlier, it's apparent that Lucifer is absent, presumably with Charlie during the events of Hazbin Hotel. However, Satan acts in his stead, which doesn't really get explained. As we can see, there's a sort of hierarchy with the sins. Satan seems to be at the top for some reason, and I wish they provided an explanation for this. Vivzie Pop herself had to come out and make a tweet clarifying that since Lucifer isn't running things, Satan does it for him. Ozzy and Bean know that Satan is basically lying and acting bigger than he is, but like I said, this doesn't really explain why the pair act the way they do. Satan is pretty clearly overstepping boundaries, but Ozzy and B, two characters that are known for standing up for what's right, basically take a backseat, which stands out as being out of character for them. Added to this, I feel like Beelzebub and Ozzy should have had more of a presence. Fizz texts Ozzy to do something and he just sits there. Other than voting, Beelzebub and Ozzy just sort of sit idly by and watch the events unfold. I would have expected them to take a more active role. It's pretty clear that Andre is shifting the goalposts and trying to get both Stolas and Blitz killed. However, B and Ozzy, two characters who'd expect to care about Stolas and Blitz, just don't do much. One potential explanation is that they're scared of Satan since he's basically judge, jury and executioner, but again they don't really explain why this is the case. I think that trial scene in particular is a bit confusing. I feel like there should have been some more clarification on how Hell's law works. Like Stolas has lost his powers, but does this mean he can die to normal weapons and won't respawn? It'll be interesting to see if questions like this are explained in future episodes. Lastly, like I mentioned earlier, I don't think this is really much of a criticism, but it's worth mentioning that the resolution of the episode was pretty clear from the get-go. Vivzie wouldn't kill Stolas or Blitz, so when we're watching these scenes, they're not as impactful as they could be. If there wasn't an announcement about the 4 seasons, I reckon myself and a lot of fans would be betting our nails, scared about what's going to happen. However, since we know the pair live, it dilutes the conclusion a little. So overall, what do I think? Personally, I think Mastermind is a masterpiece and easily my favourite episode of Season 2 so far. It had a perfect blend of humour, lore and excellent writing. It reminded me of all of the things that make Helluva Boss so great, and I think it was a pretty fitting conclusion for Season 2. There's one more episode after this, so if that episode is just a fun side episode like how Queen Bee was for Season 1, I'd be happy since Mastermind ended the season on such a strong note. So that's everything I had to say. What do you think? Do you agree with my takes or have any thoughts of your own? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments section down below. Thanks for watching.